All right, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the fundamentals of cold email, essentially the three pillars for building successful cold email campaigns. Now, so I have them here. Basically, what you want to do, and I'm going to talk about them in more detail here in just a moment, but basically the three main pillars for successful cold email campaigns are your infrastructure. That's basically ensuring that your emails are reaching your desired recipient's inbox. They're not going into the spam folder. I'm going to talk about more detail about that in just a moment. The second pillar is generating good quality, high quality lead lists. So these are the people that you're going to reach out to. This is essentially the list of emails that you're going to send your cold emails to. And then finally, your copywriting or essentially your offer. It's basically what you're putting in your cold emails. So those are the three main pillars for successful cold email. You have to know each of these backwards and forwards. You must become a Zen master expert in each of these three pillars because if you don't, you're going to struggle. And so I'm going to walk you through this is kind of a big overview presentation for what you need to know, what to do, what not to do to ensure that you're sending um, cold emails that reach your recipients. So you get responses and you build your business. So, first pillar. So building your infrastructure. So as I said before, deliverability is key. If your emails aren't being delivered to the inboxes, then of course you have a massive problem. So what can you do to set yourself up for success and set things up the correct way so that you don't have problems down the road? So the first thing that you want to do is when you're going to have to acquire domains. So the domain is the .com. So, if someone has an email address of johnsmith@gmail.com, gmail.com is the domain. Now, you have your own business domain. The first cardinal rule of cold email is you do not use your main domain. The reason for this is that if something happens and you end up burning your domain, that basically means that you send a bunch of emails using that domain and then maybe it gets flagged as spam or something happens. That's going to impact your business, your day-to-day business, because you need your main domain, the email that's associated with your main domain to do your day-to-day business activities. So that's the first rule is don't ever use your main domain. Don't do it. What we do instead is we use similar domains. So let's say you're a business, prosolutions.com. So I'm just making up a name. You can acquire domains that are similar to prosolutions.com. Obviously, you're not going to use prosolutions.com, but you can use something similar like solutionspro.com. You can rearrange the words or solution pro or pro solution. Use the singular instead of the plural. Always use .com. There's a little bit of a debate. Some people use .com and .co. For me personally, I just stick to .com. It hasn't failed me yet, and I suggest that you do the same. Really, this presentation is going to be a lot of little things that you should do that collectively result in a positive outcome for you and for your business. So only use .com. Don't include any numbers or symbols like a dash. So for example, don't use pro-solutions.com. Just keep it very simple. Stick with .com. Stick with or don't use any numbers. Don't use any symbols. For each domain, I don't think I have it in here, but for each domain, you want to use maybe 3 to 4 email accounts per domain. So if your name is John Smith, for example, you can use jsmith at the domain. So you could do jsmith, john.smith, John Smith, or just John. You can switch it up. So for each domain that you acquire, connect 3 to 4 email accounts to that domain. Okay. You're going to age these domains. So I'll talk about it a little bit later. Warming up your domains. You want to establish a reputation for your email account. So that's basically sending emails. And there are tools that you can use to do this. I'll talk about them in a moment. But basically, you can't just You could, but what you don't want to do is just get your domains, get your email accounts, and start blasting cold emails. Email service providers are aware when an email account is new, and so for that reason, you have to give it some time to warm up the email account. And then, of course, actually, before you do any of this stuff, you have to set up your DNS records. That's your SPF, your DKIM, your DMARC. These are non-negotiable. You have to set these up. You have to set these up the correct way. If you don't set these up correctly, your emails are going to go to the spam folder, and no one's going to read your email. So I'll record some future videos that talk about this in more detail, but these are kind of the main things that you have to do. For mass email platforms, I personally use Instantly.ai. There's also Smartly.ai. Those are probably the two big services for managing your cold email infrastructure. Now, these both of these services have a warm up process, or they can you can automate the warm up process using any either of these services. So you definitely want to do that. Um, I have here 2 to 4 weeks. In some cases, you might want to do it for 6 weeks, um, but you must warm up your email accounts. This is something that if you don't warm up your accounts, you're gonna have problems down the road. And so what this warm up process does is it will gradually increase the number of emails that are sent per day to other inboxes. And so if an email service provider flags any of these warm up emails as spam, the software will automatically um, notify the email service provider that, hey, this isn't spam. This is an actual email that I want to receive. I was looking forward to receiving this email. And so it's a way of establishing a reputation for each of your email accounts. Again, it sounds complex, but it's pretty straightforward. It's an automated process. You don't have to worry too much about it. I'll talk about it in more detail in a future video. Um, and I'll talk about bounce rates and how to avoid bounce rates later on. So basically, the take home message for your infrastructure is that don't use your main domain, acquire domains that are similar to your main domain, use .com only, don't use any numbers, don't use dashes. For each email domain, connect 3 to 4 email accounts. Make sure you set up your DNS records, SPF, DMARC, DKIM, etc., and make sure you warm up your accounts. That if you do that, that's really the big picture of deliverability and setting up the infrastructure. Obviously, you're gonna have to spend some time getting used to some of these tools like Instantly or SmartLead, but there's a ton of resources that are available on YouTube to get familiar. And even these service providers have accelerator programs for you that are completely free to get you started and to get you integrated and set up the correct way. Okay, so that's a big picture for infrastructure. Okay, so the next thing are your lead lists. So these are the people that you want to reach out to. You must focus on crafting quality lead lists. Spend time on your lead list. So ideally, you should have some concept of who your ideal customer is. People talk about your ICP, your ideal customer persona, ideal customer profile. This is basically who is the best customer for your business. So things such as company size. So are you targeting small startups that are maybe less than 20 employees or less than 50 employees? Or are you reaching out to large enterprise businesses that are hundreds, if not thousands of employees? These are factors to consider. The industry that they're in, even if they're in sub industries, the more niched you can get with your lead list, the better off you'll be. Because I'll talk about it in a moment about crafting the offer, but if you have a collection of high quality leads that are all struggling with the same problem that your product or service solves, you're going to fare much better than if you just blast to anyone who has an email address. Okay, so keep that in mind. Other things to factor are geography, tech stacks that people are using. If they're using a specific type of tool or software, these are factors that you can consider. And at recent company events such as funding, if they're growing, if they're hiring, or if they're undergoing leadership changes. These are all signals that you can leverage and exploit to build high quality lead lists to send your cold emails to. Okay. Of course, other things such as job titles, seniority levels, departments, because at the end of the day, you want to reach the decision maker. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind is who are the decision makers for that can decide whether or not they want to use your product or service. So these are things. Is it the C-suite? Are you reaching out to the CEO, the CMO, CTO, et cetera, or are you reaching out to a managerial level? These are things that you have to factor in and consider when you're building your lead list. Okay. Now, in terms of who you or what tools you can leverage to find these people, obviously the big ones are LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Another one is Apollo. There's also ZoomInfo. You can use Clay to get comprehensive data. There's also Crunchbase. There's a lot of tools that are out there. Um, and so, but the, don't get lazy because you can generate a list of tens of thousands of people, but make sure that you're taking the time to verify that the companies that you're reaching out to could actually benefit from your solution. Make sure that the people that you're reaching out to are the correct job titles. These are all factors that you have to consider. At the end of the day, spend time on your lead list. You will not regret it. I've run when I back in the day when I started doing this, I would send thousands and thousands of emails just to anyone. And it was a complete waste of time. And it burned some of my domains as a result because I wasn't resonating with the people in my lead list. But then once I started spending time crafting the lead lists that were high quality, that's really when it started to make a difference for me. So take that lesson. Also, to avoid bounce rates, use email verification tools such as Million Verifier or Never Bounce. I personally use Million Verifier, which does a great job. Only use the good emails, so it'll give you the emails that are good, the emails that are bad. It'll also provide catch-all emails. Um, just use the good ones, and then you can use LinkedIn profiles to cross reference your leads for accuracy. Um, but the take home message here is before you even start to build your lead list, you should have a very clear understanding of who your ideal customer is in the first place. And the best way to do that is just look at your current clients, your current customers, who are what's the top 5% of your clientele and what qualities do they share and use that as the criteria to build your lead list for future outreach. Okay. All right. Finally, so the offer and your copywriting. This is really where so the first two pillars, the deliverability and the lead lists, for the most part, those pillars are solved, meaning that there's an enormous amount of information that's available on YouTube, online to make sure that you set those up correctly. So the infrastructure set up, um, generating lead lists, for the most part, that's solved. When it comes to the offers and copywriting, there's a lot of opportunity for experimentation. So what I say to you today is the results of my own experimentation, but I encourage you to do your own experimentation, test the variables yourself to find out what works best for you and for your offer. Okay. But I'm going to give you some general guidelines to get you started. The first thing that I don't think I have on here, I didn't put on here, but just something to keep in mind is keep your emails conversational. Okay. You don't want to write really long emails that are multiple paragraphs. People aren't going to read that. People don't have time to read long emails. But write an email as if you're writing an email to a friend. So keep it short, keep it conversational. The rule that I typically use is that emails should be readable in less than 20 seconds. So keep just something to keep in mind. Um, And so I have, something in here. So we can talk about subject lines. So subject lines are one of the variables that you can experiment. Quick question is a classic. That's like the classic easiest um, low-hanging fruit subject line. Or you could say question for first name, or hi first name, or question about company name. Um, you don't have to overthink this too much. But what I would do is definitely set up at least 4 or 5 different subject lines, and experiment to find out which ones are performing the best, and then go from there. With respect to the actual body of the email, obviously you want to have the fundamentals of a cold email. So you want to have some hook, a value proposition, and a call to action. Now I have here that you can have X number of sentences, but really the most important thing, because a lot of people talk about personalization. There's a big conversation about, or there's a lot of conversation today about using AI to personalize. Um, you can use these tools to scrape LinkedIn profiles, to scrape websites, to help you craft emails that are personalized for your prospect. That's all well and good, and there is, to an extent, value in doing that. But I would argue that what's more important is making sure that your offer resonates with your prospect. So you can have all the personalization in the world. You can use the most advanced AI to say anything that demonstrates that you know them on a that you know the prospect on a personal level. But if your offer doesn't resonate, if you don't explain your solution, or at least identify the pain points that they're struggling with, your email campaigns will suffer. So don't get caught up too much in the AI personalization. Personalization is great, but I would argue that what's much more important is clearly calling out their pain point to offer your solution. That's really what's going to get the response. So I'm only saying that because there's a lot of conversation about using AI for personalization. It's great, it's exciting. There are a lot of AI tools that are really exciting right now, but make sure that you have a compelling offer. So but back to, I just wanted to share that because I didn't have it here explicitly, but that's really an important concept. So um, when you're writing your emails, as I said before, keep it conversational. You want to show that you've done your homework, and as I said before, or I've said it already, but the best way to show that you've done your homework is that you're calling out their pain point. If you say to them, I understand that you're struggling to find clients because of XYZ, or maybe it's not even clients, you're struggling with XYZ because of some pain point. If you can call that out, that is going to resonate with your prospects. Okay. And also, another people have a tendency when they're starting out to talk about the features of their solution. You know, my solution can do this, my solution can do that. They don't care. Your prospects don't care about the features of your product or service. What they care about is the end result. So you want to frame your message in light of the benefit that they will obtain as a result. So keep that in mind. I have it here. The benefit. Really focus on the benefits that they're going to get by working with you. And then, of course, you want to have a call to action. So really, a call to action is a simple question that's easy to say yes to. A classic one that I use is, I recorded a video that explains what we do in a little bit more detail. Do you mind if I send it to you? A video sales letter is a great way to get your prospect to say yes and at the same time share value with them. The easier it is for you to share value with your prospect, the more likely though they will be to want to have a conversation with you. And that's the big thing here, is that I didn't mention this before, but the purpose of cold email is not to sell. It's a little counterintuitive, but the purpose of cold email is to have a conversation. And really the conversation doesn't start until they reply with interest to your email. So you want to make a short, hard hitting, compelling email with a call to action that's easy to say yes to. Maybe you have some type of lead magnet, or you can offer them some kind of free consulting or a free audit or something to get them to respond and want to engage with you. So that's kind of the big picture for your email structure. But by all means, experiment. The most important thing about cold email is iteration. It's not set it and forget it. It doesn't work that way. You have to iterate, and that means add variables to test. So I talked about subject lines. You can experiment with your offer. So you can use different angles to frame your offer. Experiment with it and find what gets the most responses. And then the poor performing emails, you can get rid of them. The emails that are performing better, keep them and continue to iterate. It's all about iteration and um, building your campaigns for continuous improvement. And we talked about personalization. These things are great, like, company news, achievements. But this is the big one, specific challenges. If you can really address a pain point, you're going to resonate with them in a big way. Um, you know, referencing connections, etc. Yeah, but really, you want to use variables, and Instantly and Smartly are capable of doing these things where you have first name, for variable for the first name, variable for the company name, variable for personalization, or for location, etc. Um, so that's kind of the big thing. So now I've shared with you the three pillars, but let's talk about how do you actually take action? Because now you have some idea of the theory behind cold email. These are the fundamentals, but now what can you do to take action and really build a successful cold email? So the first thing you want to do is you have to set up your infrastructure, because as I mentioned before, you're going to warm up your email accounts. So and that's going to take 2 to 4 weeks. So the first thing you want to do is acquire your domains, set up your email accounts. I suggest you use Google email accounts. So use Google Workspace accounts. There's a lot of problems right now with Microsoft accounts. Um, you can explore SMTP. I can talk about that. Actually, I would not suggest that. That's probably something that's more advanced that I'll cover in a separate video. But for now, just stick with Google Workspace accounts. Get set up in Instantly or Smart Lead, and get your email accounts warming up. Once they're warming up, and you can actually do this in the first week. The first time you do it, it's going to take time, but it's a repetitive process. It's actually kind of boring. But if you can work through the boring part, that will allow you to get to the exciting part, which is talking to new prospects and generating new business. So in the first week, set up your infrastructure. And that means getting your email accounts warming up. As they're warming up, that is when you can start to do research for your lead list. So you have an idea, sit down, make sure you have an idea of your ICP, right? That's your ideal customer profile, your ideal customer persona. Once you have a good handle on who you want to serve and who would most benefit from your product or service, start working on your lead list. And not only, again, spend time on your lead list. Make sure that you're reaching out to the correct job title, you're reaching out to businesses, companies that will actually benefit from your solution. Um, Verify the email addresses. As I said, use Million Verifier. And then start to write your emails. So start writing start doing your copywriting for your cold email campaign. Now, for the cold email campaign, you can send sequences. So a sequence is a series of emails. What I propose that you do to start off is write your main email that has your offer. The second email, send it after 2 to 3 days as just kind of a follow up that says, hey, just checking in, not sure if you saw my email. Um, are you still interested in this offer? I think you could benefit a lot from it. Not even something like that. Keep it one sentence. Hey, just following up. Did you see my last email? And then from there, I would really only do maybe one more email, maybe after 4 days or 5 days, something like that. And what you could do is you can either include a case study or a testimonial, or you can present your offer using a different angle, something like that. But I wouldn't go more than 3 emails. I've found lately that after 2 to 3 emails, you're really not going to get much more benefit. Instead, you want to focus on reaching out to more new prospects, right? Because for each sequence, if a sequence has 3 emails, that's going to limit how many people you can reach out to per day. Because some days you might reach out to new people, but you might also have some follow-up emails that are in your sequence. So keep that in mind. I would stick to maybe 2, maybe 3 emails. Keep it relatively short. Um, and of course, A/B test. Um, yeah, I would start with small volumes and gradually increase, because you don't want to just blast all of your emails without doing some testing first. I would maybe test with maybe 10% of your lead. So, for example, if you have a lead list of 10,000 um, email addresses, maybe test to maybe 1,000 of those uh, prospects, just to figure out what variables are working, what variables are not working. You can eliminate those and just kind of do that continuous improvement. Okay. And then in terms of metrics for what you're tracking, obviously you want deliverability to be high, should be greater than 95%. And if you're using a tool like Million Verifier or Never Bounce, you'll be fine. Don't track open rates. The reason I say this is today, open rates are kind of a vanity metric. The reason we don't track open rates anymore is because basically, to verify that an email is opened, your email includes a piece of code. And simply by virtue of including that code, that pixel, emails are being flagged as spam. So don't track open rates. I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, but really the main metric you want to focus on are your reply rates, and more importantly, the positive replies that you're getting that are leading to meetings. So that's really where you need to spend your attention and focus your attention. Okay. And then obviously you're going to measure your pipeline generation and the revenue that's generated as a result. But so that's really the conclusion here, is that cold email conceptually is pretty simple. I mean, you're just sending emails to cold prospects, but there is a little bit of nuance to it, and the fundamentals are really your deliverability, which means setting up your infrastructure the correct way, generating high quality lead lists, and then finally crafting a compelling offer in your copywriting for the emails. Those are the 3 big concepts that you must understand. And there are a ton of resources that are available. As I said, I'm going to record future videos that go into much greater depth for each of these pillars. But for someone who's just interested in cold email and wondering what it can offer you and how to get started, this is really the primer or the big overview for how to get started, and really what you need to understand to set yourself up for success and have a solid foundation. Okay. So thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Tom Kenderdine. I'm the founder of TK Strategies. Um, Feel free to reach out to me. I have a link in the bio if you want to book a call with me, discovery call for your business if you want to utilize cold email for yourself. Hope you have a great day. Wishing you success, and take care.